Are there any government agents working undercover on Twitter? The answer might be yes. In a testimony before the US Senate Judiciary Committee on Tuesday, Twitter's former head of security and whistleblower Peter Zatko said that Twitter lacks both the resources and the motivation to search for and remove foreign intelligence threats within its operations. But before we delve more into this, listen into this exchange at the hearing.
Can you describe the types of efforts you've seen by foreign governments to infiltrate, control, exploit, or surveil Twitter and its users, and share what steps Twitter and regulators should have taken to protect against these attacks?
What I did notice when we did know of a person inside acting on behalf of a foreign interest as an unregistered agent, it was extremely difficult to track the people. There was a lack of logging and an ability to see what they were doing, what information was being accessed, or to contain their activities, let alone set steps for remediation and possible reconstitution of any damage. They simply lacked the fundamental abilities to hunt for foreign intelligence agencies and expel them on their own.
Now, Zatko claimed that he raised concerns that another government's agent was working in a foreign Twitter office and the company did not care enough to act. It's not just Zatko saying this. A week prior, Zatko was fired in January. The FBI also warned Twitter that the company may have Chinese spies within its ranks. It remains unclear whether Twitter acted on this tip. But Zatko told the Senate committee that he and others inside Twitter were aware of the company being a target for foreign intelligence agencies. Now, for more on this, we're being joined by Jamila Jaffer, who is the founder and executive director of National Security Institute at George Mason University. Thank you so much for joining us on this broadcast.
Thanks for having me.
My first question to you, can you just explain to our viewers why foreign agents, particularly a country like China, collecting user data is dangerous?
Well, look, obviously, the Chinese government can use that information to understand what users think, who they communicate with, how they take in their news and their information, and they can use that information to influence those individuals and influence their network of social connections on those platforms.
Right, absolutely. And also, do you think it is vital for the United States to introduce specific laws to regulate social media companies, not only Twitter, but also Google and Facebook?
Look, I think these are challenging questions. This has been a hot debate in U.S. politics for many years. As a general matter, the Congress has taken the view that staying out of this space and allowing the platforms to regulate themselves has been the right approach. There's an ongoing debate about that in this country today, obviously.
Right, absolutely. Also, these claims that Twitter did not care enough to act on these tips, how do you think that reflects on the company?
Well, look, I think that's a hard thing to argue. I think that we've seen a number of efforts by these platform companies to try and clear disinformation and misinformation off their platforms. Certainly, there have been claims now made, as you saw, by a former employee there about concerns they had about the way that security is being handled. But in a larger context, what you really heard was it's very hard to identify foreign actors within your networks. It's very hard to get them out. It's very hard to take that action. These are challenges we know about. It emphasizes the need for the government industry to work closer together to make sure that foreign actors aren't able to get that kind of access and influence, whether it's in public networks or private networks.
All right. Now, that being said, what sort of actions or steps or measures do you think the government can take going forward?
Well, look, I think the most important thing is for the government to better enable the private sector to better defend itself, for the private sector to work with the government to understand what the threats are and to take action on them. The more collaboration we can have, whether in the United States or in India or anywhere else, between the government industry to prevent these threats and prevent foreign actors from getting in and exploiting these networks, the better off we're going to be protected as a nation, whether that nation is the United States or India.
Right. Now, also there's, as you mentioned, there is a debate and there's this difficult balancing act of also encouraging free speech, but at the same time monitoring that platforms like Twitter, Google, Facebook are not targets of foreign agents. So what can be done in that regard?
Well, look, I think at the end of the day, we have to accept that these are private sector companies. They're going to enforce their rules the way they're going to. There's not a lot the government can do or should do, frankly, to force them in that space. What you can best do is collaborate, make the incentives go the right way, provide tax incentives, liability protection, regulatory protection, right? And then ensure that the government's doing its part and that industry is doing its part working with the government to identify who these threats are. Because, look, the government knows in a lot of ways where the threat actors are going and what they're trying to do. They can help the companies and vice versa.
All right. Well, Mr. Jamilan Jaffer, thank you so much for joining us on this broadcast. WION is now available in your country. Download the app now. Get all the news on the move.